Hello, are you a private investor with a comfort level of about $200,000 with a high internal rate of return and a security factor that's high also? Hello, I'm Lynn Ronald and I'm from the Champagne Yacht Club in Cancun. And the reason for my video today is to let you know that we're looking for a comfort investor for the amount of $200,000 for a pain in the market that we have found about 4 years ago. Let me just briefly bring you up to date with the story. We discovered this pain point when we're in the travel business. The travel business, as you're probably aware, is one of the largest in the world. And in fact, the adventure travel sector is climbing at a rate far in excess of the regular travel visitors that you see in airports around the world. This is the adventure travel section here. So you can see that we're in a huge industry and we're at the luxury end of it. And the way this pain in the market became apparent to us was that we're familiar with the timeshare business and the large timeshare resorts around the world, and with Resorts Condominium International, or RCI. We're basically familiar with the overall picture of the vacation ownership business. So we realized that when these big companies are trying to find sales incentives for their clients to induce their clients to come in and take a tour of the resort and ultimately sign up as a timeshare owner, there's all kinds of incentives being offered around the place, and they're rather staggering. When you deal with people like Marriott's or the Hiltons or the other big companies, Disney's, Marriott's, and so on, when they need a sales incentive to encourage people to come along and visit their vacation timeshare club for a visit, then it's not beyond their budget to be able to afford such things as a Rolls-Royce car to pick somebody up at the airport, for example, or a helicopter ride, or a boat tour, or a membership of a golf club. All of these things are used to incentivize people to come along and visit their timeshare sales room. Now, in the case of those big companies, of course, it's well within their budget to be able to afford, for example, a Rolls-Royce car. They simply write the check and it's just added to the sales incentives. It makes it very easy for them to encourage people to come and visit their sales room. Now, we've discovered that there is a void in the marketplace that Champagne Yacht Club is going to fill, and that's in the resorts that are basically somewhere between 10 and 50 rooms. Now, of course, there's hundreds of these around the world, and more particularly in the Caribbean area where we're functioning, there are literally hundreds of these smaller resorts that are going through a period of difficult sales revenue times, due in part to the sluggish economy over the last decade in the United States, but also in part due to the fact that it's not always possible for them to reinvest in sales incentives. For example, if you took it, for example, a 20-unit small resort in the Bahamas, for example, it's beyond their scope for them to be able to go and purchase a capital item such as a sailing yacht in order to encourage or incentivize their people. It's just not in their budget. So this is where Champagne Yacht Club fits in. Our business model calls for us to provide a luxury asset in the form of a sailing yacht or a motor yacht on the premises of the resort. Now, we do this without charge to them. In other words, it's capital input from us, which allows them to take advantage of our presence, and it allows us to take advantage of their presence. So, for example, let's take the case where a small resort might need to incentivize its tours. We would offer the boat as a branded addendum to their resort. So, for example, XYZ Stay in the Caribbean Resort now has a wonderful sailboat attached to their program, which is seen to be part of their brand. The customer has more confidence and therefore come along and is incentivized to buy. In addition to that, he is able to take advantage of the yacht's presence for daily sales, scuba diving, snorkeling, etc. So this is the void in the market that we're filling, and it's quite obvious that there's a huge number of these types of resorts around. Pardon me for a moment. We currently have connections and dialogue with about 100 resorts in the Caribbean and in the Bahamas and in the USA, the southern part of the USA, where the owners are desirous to kick their sails into gear or to sell out completely. Now, the incentive for them to sell completely quite often is that these resorts are a result of a family enterprise that was evolved over the 80s and the 90s, and currently the resorts are no longer being fully used by their owners because they're desirous of moving back to the States to retire. In that case, the property is available on the open market. You can check your local real estate listings for everywhere in the Caribbean. You'll find resorts for sale all over the place, sometimes with unrealistic expectations. But in our case, what we offer them is a joint venture situation whereby we will buy the property from them more or less at their asking price, which gives them a wonderful out. And it gives us the chance to be able to put together a package involving a sailing yacht or a motorboat to incentivize sales for the resort, at the same time to reinvest and redevelop the property. There are lots of underperforming resorts for us to be able to pick and choose from. So I would like to point out that this pain point is really quite severe, and there is no solution for these resort owners. So when Champagne Yacht Club comes along and says, okay, we will locate one of our $1 million sailing boats or motor yachts at your premises on the basis that we will incentivize your resort sales, but your clientele also incentivize our timeshare sales for our sailboat or our motor yacht. So it's a win-win situation. If we isolate each party involved, we find that the resort itself gains to the extent that they have an additional activity for their people to do on an exclusive basis. In other words, they can offer weddings and functions and 21st birthdays and graduations and all kinds of things on a wonderful boat at their resort, which was not there before. They also gain by offering day charters and snorkeling and sailing and diving tours and fishing tours on a world-class basis directly from their resort. And in that turn, they get commission for the daily charter rates. From the client's point of view, when they talk about staying or buying into that resort, they've got an added leg to their enjoyment factor so that they not only can stay in the resort itself, but they have the option to use the boat as part of their vacation time.